If you already have a camera in the scene that is used to control a character, whether it's a Cinemachine virtual camera or a regular camera with the camera component, click on Existing Camera to open the Add Camera window. In this window, we'll integrate the selected camera into the current scene Cineaster camera rig. Before proceeding, it's important to understand the two assignment modes, fixed and dynamic. The fixed mode means a camera exists only in the current scene and will be recreated every time the scene is loaded. The dynamic mode defines a camera as persistent across scenes, following the standard DontDestroyOnLoad behavior. If the camera you want to add is meant to exist only in this scene, set the assign mode to fixed. Then, choose the camera type according to the existing camera, either Cinemachine or simple camera. Assign the camera in the corresponding field, define the state name, and click Add. If your controller uses only a simple camera, and this camera will also exist only in the current scene, we'll follow practically the same steps. Set the camera type to simple camera, the assign mode to fixed, assign the camera, define the state name, and click Add. You'll see that a slot is created linking your simple camera with a virtual camera that was automatically created and added to the list of cameras in the Cineaster camera rig for this scene. If you need your simple camera to remain active in parallel with the Cineaster's main camera, make sure the Don't Disable Camera option is checked. To avoid render priority conflicts when running both the simple camera and the Cineaster's main camera in parallel, note that Cineaster will automatically keep the main camera at the highest priority in the current scene. But if your existing camera is configured with DontDestroyOnLoad, meaning it will persist across scenes, you need to set the assign mode to dynamic and configure the state name as usual. Note that in this case, we won't assign your existing camera directly, since it will be assigned dynamically at runtime. Once the state name is set, click Add. This will create a slot in the Cineaster camera rig for the current scene, along with a virtual camera. The virtual camera created for this slot acts only as a placeholder until your existing camera is dynamically assigned to it. Now, go back to Manager to see the created slot. At this point, you can define a tag for this slot, which we'll use later on. In cases like this example, where the character controller's camera is a Cinemachine virtual camera and also depends on a main camera to function, using the dynamic option can be a bit tricky. That's because each scene will have its own main camera, created by Cineaster. And if your character controller script requires a reference to the main camera, you'll need to assign the one created by Cineaster in the current scene via script. You can handle this in your own custom script for controller, or you can use reflection directly through the slot configuration created in this scene for that dynamic Cinemachine camera. Yes, this step is a bit more advanced, but nothing to worry about. Just create a public function in your character controller that takes a camera component as a parameter. In this example, I'm using Unity's built-in character controller. I simply added a public function to receive the reference to the main camera. Now, going back to the manager, let's enable the option to auto-assign Cineaster's main camera to our controller, then set the search mode to by type. provide the namespace and class name, specify that we want to call a function, and enter the name of the function we just created. Now, on your existing camera, add the existing camera to state only component. This component is used not only for identification, but also to configure the DontDestroyOnLoad behavior. Let's configure this component by setting the same tag that was defined in the slot you just created in the camera rig. You can choose to use a specific tag, as explained earlier, by enabling Assign by Tag and selecting the tag. Alternatively, you can allow it to assign to any available dynamic slot by leaving Assign by Tag set to false. But for this example, we want to ensure that in every scene where this camera is present, it looks for a matching slot in the Cineaster manager with the same tag. So we'll enable Assign by Tag and set the tag accordingly. Enable Auto Assign if you want this assignment to happen automatically. This automatic assignment will occur every time you enter a scene that contains a Cineaster manager with a dynamic slot already configured. I'm also going to add a DontDestroyOnLoad script to the player controller because I want it to persist across scenes as well. In the case of the player controller, you're not required to use this exact DontDestroyOnLoad example script. Feel free to use your own version if you prefer. Let's hit play. As we can see in the Cineaster manager, the existing camera was correctly assigned to the dynamic slot that matches the same tag defined on the camera. Now let's go to another scene and configure Cineaster again, along with a new dynamic slot using the same tag as that camera. This will allow us to test the behavior across scenes. Next, we need to set up the scene transition. You can switch scenes however you prefer, but there's one important step that must happen during transition. Before loading a new scene, you need to remove your dynamic Cinemachine camera from the Cineaster camera rig in the current scene. This is necessary for the DontDestroyOnLoad behavior to work correctly. To do this, just call Cineaster. Prepare scene transition. If you prefer, you can use the included Scene Transition Manager component. This script automatically calls Prepare Scene Transition and also includes methods to load scenes by name or by index. You can add it by going to the top menu. Becasado, Cineaster, Create, Scene Transition Manager. Let's also set up a trigger area to switch to another scene. For this, we'll use a sample script that simply detects onTriggerEnter. Inside the onTriggerEnter event, you can call the Load Scene by Name method from the Scene Transition Manager and pass the name of the scene you want to load. Now let's go back to our previous scene and set up the same scene transition configuration. So, as soon as we enter that trigger area, we can call a function to take us to the next scene. Obviously, you can handle this however you prefer. I'm just giving an example of how to switch scenes. Alright, now we can hit play again. And as we can see, our dynamic Cinemachine camera is persisting across scenes, and it's being inserted into the Cineaster camera rig in a configured slot at the moment we enter each scene. When your dynamic camera, the one meant to persist between scenes, is a simple camera, will follow almost the same process, but without needing to remove any cameras from the current scene Cineaster rig. All we need to do is configure dynamic slots in the scenes that have an active Cineaster setup, and on our dynamic camera, add and configure the existing camera state only component. So, I'll go ahead and set up the dynamic slot and tag in this scene. Then I'll add the existing camera state only component to our dynamic camera, as well as the DontDestroyOnLoad component. And I'll also set up a way to load another scene. Again, just an example. You're free to handle scene transitions however you prefer. And unlike the previous example with the dynamic Cinemachine camera, in the case of a simple camera, there's no need to call any preparation function, since there's nothing to remove from the camera rig. Now I'll go to the next scene and repeat the same process. That's it. With that, your camera setup is ready. Now go ahead and start using it in your project.